Hi, Supervisor Q. We can hear you.
Okay.
MRT here. MRT here.
Hello, Supervisor Rennie Thomas. We can hear you.
Okay. Nicely done, Supervisor Q.
Sure. We'll keep going.
Yeah.
All right. We are back in open session. I will now take roll call to confirm everyone's attendance. Supervisor Solis?
Present.
Supervisor Ridley Thomas?
Here.
Supervisor Kuehl?
Sure.
Supervisor Hahn?
Here.
Hopefully by then we'll get down to tier 2.
Let it reflect that everybody is here. Madam Executive Officer, please read the report of action.
The following is a report of action taken in closed session on September 1st, 2020. Item CS1 and item CS2, no reportable action was taken.
Thank you. So we're going to begin today, and we're going to do it in this order. We're going to begin with item number 13 because Sachi Hamai is here, and then we're going to go to item 3, 10, 12, 14, followed by item 18 and 24, which will be taken up together. Then items 19, 20, 22. And I released my hold on the item on 68. Yeah, and so that one will not be taken up. And then we'll have 68I and item A1. So with that, we'll begin with item 13. And this is an item in recognition of Sachi Hamai's retirement as our Chief Executive Officer. Today, it is our honor to celebrate her 32 years of service to Los Angeles County. As I have said many times, Sachi and I came up in the county together, and our careers crossed paths many times, and I consider it a privilege to have worked with her for these 3 decades. Sachi began her county career in the Auditor Controller's Office and then moved on to Health Services. She was selected to serve as the Executive Officer for the Board of Supervisors in 2006. In 2014, the board asked Sachi to become its Chief Executive Officer. In each of her positions within the county, she led with steadfast commitment and actually remarkable stewardship. It is hard to imagine a more talented and dedicated public servant. In her most recent capacity as a Chief Executive Officer, Sachi proved herself to be an immensely strong leader who, along with her team, cultivated growth throughout the region, and I know we would all agree on that. As CEO, she's been responsible for managing the strategic direction and day-to-day operations of 34 county departments and our overall $36 billion budget. Her strong fiscal management and keen financial skills led Los Angeles County to achieve our best credit rating in history, including an increase to a AAA rating, which is the highest possible credit rating available in the financial markets. And I know that was under Supervisor Hahn's leadership as the chair last year. Sachi worked tirelessly to support our board and department heads to serve our county communities with pride and with dedication. She helped develop and implement many of the board's priorities, including our efforts to streamline and increase access to vital health and mental health services, improve child protection, and respond to the homelessness crisis. She has been a true collaborator with our labor groups, community-based organizations, and stakeholders at the federal, state, and local level to achieve our goals as a county. We are fortunate to have had her as our trusted partner in leading the county workforce, and truly are grateful, Sachi, that you offered to delay your retirement to lend your guidance and support during the COVID-19 public health emergency and economic downturn. Your accomplishments, leadership, mentorship will have a lasting impact on the county for many years to come, and I know it will have a lasting impact on me personally. I want to thank you for your friendship and for your partnership. While this is truly bittersweet, my colleagues and I are privileged to honor you and your incredible career. I'm grateful for your 32 years of loyal service to our county and our residents, and I know I will miss seeing you and really Oreo, who has been my mental health stabilization during the COVID, when I go down and just to pet your dog and just calm down when I see her around the hall. But I look forward to seeing you both again soon. And I know this is not goodbye. This is just until we meet again. So with that, Supervisor Solis.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. And from the bottom of my heart, I join my colleagues in thanking you, Sachi Hamai, not only for your decades of public service, but also your leadership in the past 5 months of this pandemic. You could have left the county service at your scheduled retirement back in March, but when you saw a looming pandemic, you chose to stay and put your experience to good use despite the enormous challenges that were coming your way. And I think that says a lot about a person. During this unprecedented time, you stepped up even though you knew that this was not going to be an easy ride. I find that to be very courageous and admirable. Your stewardship of the county over the last 5 years has yielded extraordinary results. You and your team should be very proud. There are many, many contributions to choose from, but I think getting the county the AAA credit rating has to be way up there. That is going to be a long-lasting achievement, especially now. You solidified and strengthened the county's fiscal health, ensuring that we're prepared for a rainy day. Well, that day is here, and even though it has been tough, I think we were better prepared because of you and your work, Sachi. Another notable contribution is your crucial role in the development of the Parks Needs Assessment and Measure A, which you were so important in helping us go through that process, particularly as it impacts disadvantaged communities and especially in districts like mine. And that work also provided a blueprint for the development and passage of Measure W and Measure H. Those ballot measures will also have a significant impact for many, many future generations and residents of LA County. And finally, you've been a staunch supporter of our Restorative Care Village project at LAC USC campus, including fast-tracking the demolition of the old Women and Children's Hospital in order to start the second phase of the Restorative Care Village. So as a small token of our appreciation, Supervisor Barger and I were delighted to dedicate the Grand Park Overlook Terrace in your honor, and equally as important, to rename the dog run in honor of your pet and your friend, Oreo. We wish you a happy retirement, and we know that you'll continue to be a leader in our county. And this isn't goodbye, but we thank you for your service. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Yeah, well said, Supervisor Solis. Supervisor Hahn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Sachi, it's weird and incredibly strange that we're saying our farewells to you in this virtual environment. But no matter the lack of pomp and circumstance, your work and your service to our county truly speaks for itself. Thanks to you, going into this pandemic, our budget was strong, our credit rating was the highest it's ever been. And I think that is the single most important reason that we've been able to weather the economic downturn thus far and still be able to deliver our services to our county residents. The board has really pushed the county and you to do more than just pay attention to the bottom line, which in the past was the only measure of success for a chief executive officer. But we've been asking you to help solve our big problems. We ask you to reimagine our jails and how we can better help those who cycle in and out of them. We asked you to address the homelessness crisis with urgency. We asked you to make the county greener and more sustainable. Those are just a few examples, and you handled them all so well. I think it is fitting and appropriate that we named the plaza above the fountain in Grand Park in your honor. And I think Oreo will be the first dog to ever be given an honor as that renaming or the naming of the dog run for Oreo as well. I know he's been at your side for all of this and a valued member of our county family. Sachi, congratulations for an incredible career that was groundbreaking in so many ways. And thank you for your leadership and for your service as Chief Executive Officer of the great County of Los Angeles. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Hans. Supervisor Kuehl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sachi, this is really sad. I have always considered myself a very fortunate person, kind of lucked into a lot of really good situations. And one of the very best was how early in my service to the county, you became the Chief Executive Officer. You have been the CEO with whom I've worked for pretty much the whole 6 years that I've been here so far. And I feel like that was very lucky. And I didn't actually understand at the beginning how lucky that was because I didn't really know exactly what a CEO does. But you have been such a stellar example of the executive leader, the visionary and the practical, the cautionary and the bold. And I think that you're going to leave very, very big shoes to fill. The stewardship that you did for this county, it really was caretaking on your part. A lot of listening, a lot of translating from the idea to the action. The board proposes, but the CEO disposes. And frankly, we count on that. And we're never disappointed. I was always completely nonplussed by the way that you would be a step ahead, no matter what I thought was my brilliant original idea. You would come in for a 4:00 Monday afternoon meeting, and I was going to surprise you with my new idea, and you already had the org chart and the budget and everything for this completely new idea, which I don't know how you thought of it before me, but there you were. A really, really great executive, a true leader, a woman of great heart, of understanding about the great varieties in our 10 million constituents in the county, in our 5 different districts, in our different cities. Really an understanding of diversity in its truest sense. Devoted to bringing others along, devoted to making leaders of them, devoted to bringing your staff up and expecting more of them and then saying, you did it and you did it well. You've been a really, really fine leader. But the thing that has impressed me most, and I hereby bestow upon you a title never heard before, is the way that you really understood the board. Therefore, I dub thee Board Whisperer. Good luck.
Touche. Supervisor Ridley Thomas.
Madam Chair and colleagues, today I just wish to share a few words of gratitude to our CEO, Sachi Amai, on closing out this chapter of an exceptional career. I think it's well established that her budgetary acumen, coupled with her commitment to serving the underserved, strengthening the safety net, has enabled LA County to invest deeply in some of the most important priorities of our time, from justice reform to the fight to end homelessness. And done all while maintaining fiscal prudence that has earned the county's its highest ever credit ratings. Sachi has been a mentor and role model to a generation of county leaders, including and most particularly women of color. She has not only led the county strategically with professionalism, with precision, but with compassion informed by her life experience. For me, this was most evident when just a few weeks ago we unanimously adopted the anti-racism motion. Sachi's own testimony was compelling. She spoke not only as the CEO, but as the daughter and granddaughter of Japanese Americans who were forced into internment camps during World War II. She stated this experience with racism became an indelible part of her family's narrative and is what in large part has fueled her commitment to public service. And as we move forward as a board on priorities that will make this county stronger, more resilient in the delivery of public health, rooting out disparities in housing and education and employment, funding our commitments, we'll do it with Sachi's imprint in mind. From the capital investments, from the mental health headquarters in Koreatown to the open space project in Willowbrook, known as Magic Johnson, a transformative environmental statement, to the significant work that's under development in the arts arena, namely LACMA, our premier institution. All of those institutions and more owe her a great degree of gratitude. So it's on behalf of the people of the county at large, particularly the people of the 2nd Supervisorial District, Sachi, that we salute you and thank you for your service rendered unto us. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Ridley Thomas. Sachi?
Hi.
Hi, there you go. Hi.
Hi, thank you. And thank you all supervisors. I think I echo Supervisor Hahn's statement that it's a bit strange and a little weird. We aren't in the boardroom. I've had so many of my Tuesdays since 2006 in those boardrooms. I've seen the good, the bad, and the otherwise in those chambers, and very much have fond memories. So 32 years go so quickly, and I have just had a fabulous career with the county. I couldn't ask for a better family to be with. As all of you know, I left Denver, Colorado right after I graduated from college, and I came to this county, and I only thought I would be here for 5 years, and I ended up here for 32 years. And one of the things that I look back at is the county's experiment, and that experiment was, at that time, the attrition rates were so high in the auditor controller's office that they went out of state to recruit individuals coming out of college, and they thought if they could get people from out of state into California, in particular in LA County, that we would stay and not leave as quickly as those coming from in-state. And I have to say that I guess I'm proof of that experiment. But overall, when you think of the various county experiments, and I think that's what I've most appreciated out of this career, is that there's always been a time in anywhere that I've been that the county has really looked outside the box and has tried to do so much in different ways for the communities and the people residing in LA County. And I'm just so appreciative of that. And I'm appreciative of this board for continuing to just push through and, really try and make a difference in everybody's lives. So I'm getting a little teary-eyed, and that's probably why it's better that we aren't in the board chambers for everybody to see this. But I also want to just express my thanks to various individuals. I know they always say don't thank individuals because I'll probably forget somebody, but there's so many people that I would like to thank along this great career of mine. But I want to start. Mary Wickham is sitting right across from me, and she's been the champion of champions and has been my partner during my time as CEO. I think that it's been really, truly amazing. And I think it's probably, and I hope it's not, the only time that you will see two females in such high-ranking positions here. But not only us two females, but, for the first time, there were 4 women board members, and that's been truly amazing. Jim Jones has been, a fabulous friend of mine. I started my career with Jim, and he's just been really a mentor and a role model. I want to thank all of the other department heads that are out there, and, they've been my colleagues and supportive, and every time that we've had issues, we've all had to pull together. So just thank you. There's other individuals along the way that have just really stepped up, and so I am so appreciative. But I do want to thank Kezia, and I know she'll continue the great work of the CEO's office and our entire team that has been here. So I think that's, I know I'm forgetting many people, but, I'm just very grateful to this board and to this county again for having me as part of this family and allowing me to kind of make a footprint in trying to make it a better place for all of us. So thank you. Yeah, and for allowing Oreo to be part of the county as well. Thank you.
Yeah, dog under control in there.
All right. Well, Sachi, you are truly an inspiration, and you're an inspiration to many women out there. And I just want to, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being incredible and being a friend. So with that, we will see you when we go down and do the dedication at the park. So item 13 is before us. It'll be moved by Supervisor Solis, and I will second to approve the item. Madam Executive Officer, please call the roll.
Item 13 is before you. Supervisor Solis?
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Ridley Thomas?
Aye, with gratitude.
Supervisor, aye. Supervisor Keel?
With fireworks.
Supervisor Keel, aye. Supervisor Hahn?
Oh gosh, now I don't know what to say besides just aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Supervisor Barger?
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Fantastic. Godspeed, Sachi. All right, so now we're going to go on to item number 3. And that was Supervisor Solis?
That was held by me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Hahn. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And colleagues, before I get into my comments about the body-worn cameras, I just want to take a moment to reflect on something which will be a good segue into my remarks about body-worn cameras. And I just felt it necessary in my own heart to take a moment to acknowledge what our nation has witnessed and gone through just since the last time we met. And last Sunday, we all saw the horrifying footage of a police officer shooting Jacob Blake in the back 7 times in front of his small children. And then days later, we saw footage of police officers from the very same police department in Kenosha, Wisconsin, allowing a white young man armed with an AR-15 to walk past them, even as protesters shouted that he just shot people. And then, of course, unfortunately, yesterday, we saw protests erupt here in South LA after sheriff deputies shot and killed DeJohn Kesey, a black man who they had originally attempted to stop for a code violation related to how he was riding his bike. And we heard even in our public comments today, and I know I particularly was listening to Kim Gill and her comments, but I think a lot of us here in LA County are looking at the dichotomy of these recent events that has summarized for a lot of people the problems that we're trying to cope with around police violence. And when white Americans may be armed, they can expect to be given the benefit of the doubt. And when black Americans are armed, they're treated as a threat unfortunately with deadly consequences. And Judy Clark, who's Black and she's on my staff, she shared with me something she wrote. And she said, if I walked down a chaotic road filled with gunshots, looting, and people shouting, and I had a gun strapped across my chest with my arms raised, how would the police respond? Would they tell me to step aside while they move toward the crowd? This is the issue, a different set of rules. And if this past week has told us anything, it's that the moment of racial reckoning is not over, it's just beginning. And I wanted to say that I'm proud to be a part of this board at this moment because we've recognized and embraced our own role in making positive change, whether that's our anti-racism initiative or committing to a Care First, Jail Last criminal justice future. I know that you all know that we have a lot of work ahead of us, but I feel confident that we will continue to embrace this moment, and we're even going to be pushing our state legislature partners to do the same thing, even though I was disappointed that a lot of those bills never made it to the governor. But we need to create a just future that Black people and people of color here in Los Angeles County and in this country deserves. Which leads me to say that we're going to be moving forward with the final stages of implementing body-worn cameras in our own sheriff's department. And I know, again, this board has long supported body-worn camera process. And we had previously set aside money that the sheriff's department, while the sheriff's department was searching for a vendor to be used specifically for this purpose. A few weeks ago, our sheriff's department concluded their RFP process and entered into an agreement with the selected vendor, Axon Enterprise. And this agreement puts the department on track with their goal to begin rolling out body-worn cameras in October. So today, what we're doing in this item is voting to release 1 year's worth of funding for body-worn cameras from the set-aside pot over to the sheriff's department. This will allow them to move forward without any extra red tape so that we can finally get cameras out there on the ground to help with transparency, oversight, and accountability. But I think it's important to note that body-worn cameras are not the end of the reform that I'm imagining and that I believe that we need to see in our law enforcement agencies. For years, we've seen countless instances of police violence caught on tape, whether from body-worn cameras or bystander cell phone footage. So we know that the presence of a camera does not necessarily prevent violence. They don't prevent violence always, and they don't always lead to accountability. And we know that after witnessing the horrific murder of George Floyd that was caught on tape. And it wasn't until the people took to the streets across this nation for days on end that the officers were finally arrested and charged. And similarly, the recent shooting of Jacob Blake in the back in front of his children was filmed, and yet the officers have not yet been arrested. So yes, they're necessary, but body-worn cameras, in my opinion, are not enough. But let's move forward today with implementing body-worn cameras in our own county sheriff's department, but let's not stop there. This needs to be accompanied by real accountability, real reform, and real reflection. And again, thank you to my colleagues. You have shown great courage in taking steps towards achieving real reform. I'm honored to be a part of you. And I know we will keep moving forward. There's a lot more for us to do, but body-worn cameras are one piece of this reform. So I know all of you have supported this from the beginning, and I think today is an important vote that we will take. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And thank you, Supervisor Hahn, for letting me be the co-author on this motion to finally, and I say finally, implement the body-worn camera technology throughout Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. The department has been working closely with ISD over the last several months, and on August 11th, we officially signed a contract with Axon Enterprise. The transfer of these funds accounts for the first year's expenses, which includes costs for technology and for running the system's back end. The sheriff has said that he intends to begin rolling out body-worn cameras October 1st, And I am glad to see that Lancaster will be among the first 5 stations to be outfitted. But we need to make sure that this is provided throughout the entire department. This is a big step in the direction of ensuring the accountability of our communities, and quite frankly, it's what they deserve. It has certainly been long awaited, and we cannot afford to delay any longer. And I just want to echo your comments, Supervisor Hahn, regarding the tragedies that are taking place. There's no question that these cameras are not going to solve that, but we need to work together, and accountability goes both ways, not only in the private sector, but also with sworn. And I'm confident that working together as a board, we will provide that transparency and accountability that our constituents expect and, quite frankly, deserve. So with that, I'm honored to be a co-author on this motion. Supervisor Solis?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank you, Supervisor Hahn, and yourself for bringing this motion before us today. I'll keep my remarks short, as my history as a supervisor will show that I have long advocated for the need for and have taken action to get body-worn cameras for the Sheriff's Department. In fact, since taking this office, law enforcement transparency and accountability was an issue I have tackled and continue to push for, as we all do. One way was to support the outfitting of the Sheriff's Department with body-worn cameras, understanding that it's necessary to take these steps and use this as a tool. Back in 2016, I requested that the Sheriff's Department speed up the process of ensuring deputies had body-worn cameras. And in 2018, along with Supervisor Ridley Thomas, a consultant was brought in to the project to help us identify how we would go about paying for the body-worn cameras and how to properly fund the program. And then in 2019, acting on our joint motion, we directed to have a body-worn camera pilot in 5 stations in each of our supervisorial districts being expanded throughout the county. I was happy to hear that the department had finalized selection of a vendor last month, and I know we're on track for the body-worn cameras to be operational in 5 stations, including in the City of Industry, which is in the 1st District. But I'm still awaiting to hear how quickly we can get these cameras also in one area that is also my district, and that's the East LA station. I strongly believe that when body cameras are used in the way that they were intended, they are remarkable tools for law enforcement to provide transparency and accountability. It protects both our residents and the deputies who wear and operate them appropriately. Therefore, I'll support the monies to be transferred exclusively for the department to cover the first year's costs for the body-worn cameras. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Ridley Thomas?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think this is obviously long overdue, and I'm pleased that it is coming forward. The record has already been established as to how much work has been done by the board for the length of time to get us to this place. And I'm just here to say that it's critical that the Sheriff's Department stay on track to roll out body-worn cameras without delay. I look forward to future reports on the program's implementation from the Office of the Inspector General. Seems to me that phase 2 needs to be teed up pretty quickly. This is at this point simply being piloted. We need body-worn cameras in every single station in the county of Los Angeles. Not just the first 5, but all of our stations. And so, Madam Chair, Supervisor Hahn, thank you for bringing this forward to release these resources. They've been sitting in the PFU for well over a year to get this moving, to get it done. Now, no more excuses. These body-worn cameras, they don't solve everything, but they will put a lot of things in perspective. More to be said on that on item 68 when we address the issue of Andres Guardado and Dijon Kazee. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Ridley Thomas. Seeing no other speakers, item 3 is before us, moved by Supervisor Hahn and I will second to approve this item. Madam Executive Officer, please call the roll.
Item 3 is before you. Supervisor Solis?
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Ridley Thomas?
Aye.
Supervisor Ridley Thomas, aye. Supervisor Kuehl?
Aye.
Supervisor Kuehl, aye. Supervisor Hahn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Supervisor Barger?
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to item number 10, the alignment of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors Care First, Jail Last, and law enforcement transparency and accountability priorities with legislative policies. It was held by Supervisor Solis.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank Supervisor Kuehl for supporting this motion by accepting to be a co-author. Since 2015, this board has identified justice reform as one of its board's directed priorities that focus specifically on diverting of individuals from county jails to supportive services, reducing the incidence of jail violence, and increasing transparency and accountability of the Sheriff's Department. We as a board continue to place a tremendous amount of importance on and have taken steps to ensure that when there is any misconduct by a sheriff's deputy, they are held to account for that action or inaction through oversight bodies such as the Office of the Inspector General and the Civilian Oversight Commission and the board's support of body-worn cameras. We're at a time of reckoning right now. We are at a momentous period right now. We can't deny that the distinct call that Black Lives Matter have not woken so many of us to the injustices to Black people that Black people face every single day in America. Just to give you an example, today we received 510 emails in support of this motion alone because of the tragic deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Jacob Blake, Andres Guardo, Paul Ria, Anthony Vargas, and just yesterday, Dijon Kizi. These are just some of the people who have been killed or maimed at the hands of law enforcement, including here in Los Angeles County. And in response to this movement, state legislators have put forward a number of policing reform bills that would have made meaningful change to how this state polices its residents and how we hold law enforcement accountable for harm against residents across the state, such as bills that would have done the following: address law enforcement's actions during protests and use of force, provided recourse for victims and survivors of police violence, created transparency through the disclosure of peace and custodial officers' records. And finally, unfortunately, the moment was not met as many of these transformational bills did not pass, like SB 731, that would have automatically revoked the certification of a peace officer due to misconduct, which was not even called for to the floor for a vote. However, this board is still strongly committed to make the necessary changes here in Los Angeles County. Our actions today still support the intent of the bills listed and will be a part of the county's legislative agenda to instruct our county's legislative advocates to continue to support these bills if they return next session and similar bills in the near future. We will also continue to strengthen our legislative policies so that they align with the efforts and actions of this board, including the priorities and agendas involving the alternatives to incarceration in LA County under the new ATI director's direction. Above all, what we're doing today in LA County should reflect and support the work of the state on issues related to Care First and Jail Last, and law enforcement transparency and accountability. Yes, we are all Angelenos, but we are also Californians, and so we do need to work together. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I ask for support on this motion from my colleagues.
Thank you, Supervisor Solis. Supervisor Kuehl.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Supervisor Solis for bringing this motion. I'm very pleased to co-author, even though some of the bills didn't get through the rather crazy end of session, and some of us remember it was always kind of crazy as the clock ticked down, and sometimes Mr. Brown even turned it back a little bit so we could get through it. It's still very important to support what these bills were trying to attain, to let the governor know those on his desk are important to us. And I think even more important, to work with our new ATI director and with others in our county family to articulate our priorities, our continuing priorities, and to work to develop legislation for the next year and the next session. And also, we expect that the ATI director will include legislative recommendations in the first report back to the board, even though she's not on board yet. She will be, and my, how the time flies, no matter what you're doing. So thank you again, Supervisor Solis, and I too ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Supervisor Hahn?
Thank you. And thank you, Supervisor Solis and Kuehl, for this motion. And, two things to me have become increasingly clear about the need for criminal justice reform. First, this board is fully committed to pursuing meaningful reform. And second, we unfortunately can't accomplish it alone. We need the state's help, especially when it comes to improving transparency and accountability of all of our law enforcement agencies. And after the murder of George Floyd, we saw multiple California lawmakers propose bills targeting law enforcement reform, including the 11 that are mentioned in this motion. It's very disappointing that of those 11, only 2 actually made it to the governor's desk. I believe one of them was Assemblymember Mike Gibson's bill that it will not allow carotid artery restraint or chokehold. So that's I'm happy about that. But we just can't keep letting this happen. I think the public is really growing weary. People are outraged. People are disgusted. People are, enough is enough. But we still, all of us need to realize that we need to pass laws and ordinances that actually are meaningful. So, I plan to support this because we are letting the state know that we expect them to help us achieve these things, and we're going to be actively advocating for them to do so. And I like it that we're adding these priorities to our legislative agenda. And our vision of Care First, Jail Last will now be talked about and advocated for in the halls of the Capitol in Sacramento. And when we do put something like this in our legislative agenda, even depending on, the pandemic or something else that would prevent us from, holding a regular meeting, it will always be the case that they will know that if there is a bill that fits into this, we will support it and we will actively lobby to get it passed. So I hope our state lawmakers, many of them are our friends, and I hope they will come alongside us and answer the calls for justice reform that we know we're hearing here in LA County, here in California, and certainly across the nation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say, given the ending of the legislative session last night, there are several of the bills that did not make it through the process as we've been discussing. So I imagine we will not be sending letters on those specific bills. I'd like to bifurcate my vote and support Directives 2 and 3 of the motion. Related to Directive 1, I would like to record my strong support only for 2 bills going to the governor's desk, Assembly Bills 1506 and 1775. I had concerns with some of the others, but we can debate that at another date. There's no question that reform is necessary, and the devil is going to be in the details. Because so many of these bills were what they call gutted and amended in the last few days, there was not an appropriate amount of time to vet. Typically, the legislature debates for several months through various committees, but that was not done with the bills that we're discussing. Those nuances that can be missed when policy is crafted at the 11th hour become extremely important when it comes to implementation. Without proper dialogue and vetting, we may be creating more room for unintended consequences. I find it difficult, though, right now to talk about transparency and accountability when we have a situation in this county where we are having our Inspector General fighting to get information that, as I said earlier, is the right of the people to know. And it makes my job difficult advocating for what's right when we don't have a justice partner that's willing to work with us. And these type of legislative bills are coming as a result of that. There are changes that are absolutely worth discussing, but I feel that this was a rushed approach, and I know that as a board, constructive legislation is necessary, but I'd rather have it be fully vetted and discussed with all of our partners. Thank you. Supervisor Ridley Thomas.
Madam Chair, thank you. Supervisor Solis and Kuehl, we thank you for bringing the motion forward. Essentially to align the board's priorities with legislative reform efforts pertaining to the use of force and how officer-involved shootings are to be investigated. We'll revisit that further in the agenda today on item 68. All of us know, as a result of being seasoned legislators and policymakers, that there is no silver bullet to reform of law enforcement. If you want to focus on meaningful reform and supporting alternatives to incarceration, it will require a compilation of meaningful pieces of legislation, including many of the bills referenced in the motion. They get worked out, they get debated, they are amended, and the like. But despite the progress that has been made through the establishment of the Office of the Inspector General, the Civilian Oversight Commission, and the implementation now of body-worn cameras, more has to be done to square up with 21st century constitutional policing. That is the order of the day, and it seems to me that legislation in this motion will advance the board's overall goals and commitment to that reform. Look, this is hard work, uniquely hard work. Nobody necessarily relishes being in a tiff with law enforcement, but law enforcement has to come to appreciate and understand that those of us who operate from the vantage point of civilians have an expectation that they will abide by the law, and when they don't, it is our obligation, our duty to engage. That's essentially what's in play here and now, and I support the motion and look forward to the report by Madam Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Solis, any closing comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just want to point out that Supervisor Ridley Thomas makes a very good observation. Those of us that have served in the legislature understand that sometimes a bill may not even make it out of committee, and if it makes it to the floor, we're lucky. But it may come back again in different fashions and maybe under a different title, but the intent is always pretty clear. And that's what this process is about. It's saying that we support the idea, the concepts that have given some sense of life to people who need remedies and need to see that there's fairness in our justice system. And that's merely what we're presenting here, to ask for our legislative affairs staff to advocate on behalf of the board and hopefully set a strong precedent. Because when LA County speaks, people do listen across the state of California, and we've seen the impact that we can have. And so I very much would like to keep the intent of this motion moving forward in its entirety, because I don't lose sight that perhaps there were some bills that didn't make it. But I, as a former member of the legislature, recall having several bills go through the process to not see the light of day, and then all of a sudden something miraculous happens and we get support. And sometimes it comes in different iterations. It may even come in a trailer bill, but the intent is always there. So what I would ask that we not bifurcate any part of the motion, because it will then water down, I think, the intent of what the board has been trying to do, or at least the majority of the board. So I would ask for you to support that. And if you can, I understand that. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I will accept that, but I am going on the record stating that I strongly support Assembly Bills 1506 and 1775. So with that, Madam Executive Officer, will you please call the roll?
Item 10 is before us. Supervisor Solis.
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Ridley Thomas.
Aye.
Supervisor Ridley Thomas, aye. Supervisor Kuehl.
Aye.
Supervisor Kuehl, aye. Supervisor Hahn.
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Supervisor Barger.
No.
Supervisor Barger, no. Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. Now we are going to move on to item number 12, and that was held by Supervisor Solis.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I want to thank Supervisor Kuehl for also joining me on this motion as a co-author. As you know, LA County is home to about 3.6 million immigrants, accounting for 36% of the county's population. Nearly 60% of all children born in the county have at least one immigrant parent, and nearly 70% of the county's immigrant non-citizen population who have lived in the United States for more than a decade all call LA County home. Through the passage of bold bills and laws, LA County has come far to make this county home to so many people from different backgrounds and origins, and we have greatly benefited from their hard work and their contributions to our communities. This motion is very much in line with what the board has already done. In 2017, the board reaffirmed its commitment to immigrant residents and their families by passing a motion to make immigration a county priority. We also took board action extending the county's sensitive location policy to prohibit immigration authorities' access to county facilities unless they present a judicial warrant. Sadly, long before COVID-19 pandemic, we had heard horror stories of problematic ICE detainer requests due to ICE's reliance on problematic databases and systems that proved to be unreliable, error-ridden, and incomplete. This resulted in citizens wrongly being detained, families being separated by these devastating mistakes, and county resources being wasted. In fact, in 2019, the Civilian Oversight Commission recommended that the Sheriff's Department not permit ICE or its contractors to access any departmental property and should not honor ICE requests unless a judicial warrant was present or judicial probable cause determination. This has become even more magnified as the impact has been more distressing because of COVID-19 and the economic crisis. We are consistently hearing of horrific conditions in detention facilities due to ICE inability to keep detainees safe from COVID cases and the thousands of detainees testing positive for COVID-19 and deaths attributed to COVID-19 in these facilities, and information about ICE underreporting the impact of COVID-19 in their facilities and on the detainees. In response to lawsuits, deplorable conditions in detention facilities like Adelanto and Otay Mesa, the current sheriff in April 2020 issued a temporary moratorium on ICE transfers that was extended on a monthly basis. In August, the sheriff made the moratorium permanent, but only under his administration. Unfortunately, this policy is not binding on future sheriffs. To further the county's continued response to the public health emergency before us and to safeguard the health and safety and constitutional rights, the board, through this motion, can preserve the moratorium that the sheriff instituted on transfers to ICE absent a judicial warrant into county policy. And I've asked, Madam Chair, if we could hear from the Vice Chair of the Civilian Oversight Commission to speak on the impact of this motion in LA County, and that is Hernan Vera. If he is permitted to speak, Madam Chair, I would ask that he be allowed to speak at this time.
Sure. Supervisor Kuehl, do you want to wait and hear him speak, or would you like to say some comments before he speaks?
I think I'll make my co-author comments now, if that's all right.
Sure.
Just very briefly to back up, thank you so much, Supervisor Solis. This is incredibly important, and I think we've all thanked the sheriff for the moratorium and really just want to solidify that decision and carry it forward as the absolute policy of the board. There's several reasons why this motion makes a good deal of sense. First of all, I think everybody knows warrants are just more reliable. They're reviewed by the judiciary. They're signed by judges. They require a higher burden of proof than detainers, which really makes them more reliable than detainers, which are not always accurate. You probably remember the ACLU sued ICE over the reliability of detainers, and it was successful. And we want to go along with that kind of protection. Secondly, it's more transparent. If ICE chooses to pick up somebody who's being released from the jails without a warrant, they're required to do it in public where it would be monitored and refused. Thirdly, as Supervisor Solis indicated, the terrible conditions in Adelanto, they're even worse than they were during this pandemic. Including spraying disinfecting gas in the facility that's completely disrupting everybody's nervous system and causing bloody noses, etc. And so we want fewer people, obviously, to be going there. This actually saves money and time as well, because the Sheriff's Department pays custody assistants to review detainers. And so requiring a warrant takes that work away as well. To me, the most important thing, however, is that we are also pushing back on the president's draconian immigration policies and enforcement practices, which gives me pleasure whenever we do it. So thank you again, Supervisor Solis, and I'm proud to co-author this motion.
Thank you. Seeing you wanted someone to speak, and then I don't see any of the supervisors requesting to talk. So, Supervisor Solis.
Yes, Madam Chair, I was wondering if we could ask Hernan Vera, who is Vice
Sure.
Chair, to speak for briefly, maybe 2 minutes.
Sure.
Possible?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Supervisor Solis and Kuehl for authoring and co-authoring this. It's personally a pleasure to speak not only on this item, but on a day, I think a historic day, where the board is taking action on so many critical items relating to law enforcement reform, and I'm proud personally to be a part of that. So thank you. But as the Supervisor Solis said, I am the Vice Chair of the Civilian Oversight Commission that, as you know, was created to increase accountability, transparency, and oversight of the Sheriff's Department by providing a forum for the public to make its voice heard and to increase public trust in the process. So in 2017, this board passed a resolution directing the Civilian Oversight Commission to take a look at the policies and procedures of the Sheriff's Department relating to immigration, and specifically relating to issues of cooperation by the Sheriff's Department with ICE. And so we created an ad hoc committee on immigration issues that I chaired, and we got to work by setting up town halls all throughout the county and meeting with different groups and talking to organizations on both sides of this issue. We received thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, as you can imagine, all across the spectrum on this issue. We also did on-site inspections of MCJ, CRDF, the Inmate Reception Center. We looked at the policies. We looked at also at what other jurisdictions in the state have done on this to see if this has been looked at. And we also spoke with the Sheriff's Department. At the time, Sheriff McDonald's office, we met with him personally and his key staff. And then finally with Sheriff Villanueva's staff when his administration came in. And so in May of 2019, we issued a report that was approved by the full COC that made a series of recommendations that include the ones that are part of item 12 today. And let me share very briefly the real primary purpose for that recommendation. I think Supervisor Kuehl said it correctly, that one issue was the approximately 1.4 million that was being spent by the county on sheriff's personnel to review those detainer requests. But for us, the primary purpose, the primary reason was public safety. At the time in 2017, there were reports that the Latino community, because of immigration concerns, there was a significant drop in the reporting of crime. 10% drop in the reporting of crime among Latino communities, and a 25% drop of sexual assault and rape by Latino communities. And we heard comment after comment in Spanish and English and other languages. I will not report unless I feel comfortable that ICE is not part of this. We would follow up. I will not report. Specific comments like that again and again. And so we came to the conclusion that for persons that have served their time, that if we allow the county to participate in voluntary transfers without a judicial warrant, that we are sending the message to community members that there is cooperation. And we felt that a robust and clear, bright line needed to be drawn, prohibiting those transfers. So that was a recommendation. We were thrilled that in April, as Supervisor Solis said, the sheriff created a moratorium, and then in August that he made it permanent. So we want to acknowledge and thank the sheriff for that step, but it is true that it is not binding. And in our experience, other administrations like that of Sheriff McDonald had another view. So item 12 is fully in accord with our recommendations. It's a very important issue. It's still a very important issue to the community. We keep getting comments about that. And so personally, we have not taken a formal position on item 12 as a commission since we haven't, it hasn't come before it, but it's perfectly in line with our recommendations. And I personally applaud all of you for taking it up.
Thank you. Supervisor Solis, anyone else?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Hernan Vera. Appreciate all the testimony that we received earlier at the opening hour, and would ask and urge my colleagues to vote aye. Thank you.
Okay, moved by Supervisor Solis, seconded by Supervisor Kuehl. Madam Executive Officer, will you please take the roll?
Item 12 is before you. Supervisor Solis?
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Riley Thomas? Supervisor Riley Thomas? Supervisor Kuehl?
Aye.
Supervisor Kuehl, aye. Supervisor Hahn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Supervisor Barger?
Abstain.
Abstains from the vote. Motion carries 3-0 with one abstention.
Okay, now we are going to move on to item number 14, which was held by Supervisor Solis.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I also know that it's so important as we see that the upcoming flu season is very fast approaching us. There is much uncertainty, as you know, about the influenza-associated disease and how it will occur in the context of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Flu viruses and coronaviruses are different, but the symptoms are similar, adding to the challenge to treat and respond. There are also concerns about what impact the flu season will have on Los Angeles County's hospital system, which, as you know, is already strained due to COVID-19. The threat posed by both viruses must be treated with urgency. And although the flu season in the United States was mild, there were 39 to 56 million cases, resulting in over 700,000 hospitalizations and 62,000 flu-related deaths. These realities require us to be creative and encourage our 10 million residents to do all that they can to protect against the flu. That means continued use of face coverings and also means getting the flu vaccine as soon as possible. We know, however, that people are reluctant to visit pharmacies and doctors' offices where these vaccines are typically administered, given COVID-19. That's why we have a duty to overcome these obstacles and ensure that our community accesses the flu vaccine through drive-through vaccination clinics and publicity campaigns. And as always, we must view this issue with an equity lens, ensuring that communities have equitable access to treatment. That is why I brought the motion forward. The Department of Public Health has already done such an incredible work around addressing the seasonal outbreaks of influenza. So I'm asking them to develop a multilingual